Hi and welcome to the Cloaked Hedgehog's YouTube channel. Today we're going to continue to listen to Dogman encounters that people have had in various areas, and today we're doing Ohio. And there are many sightings in Ohio. And I'm just going to tell you about 4 of them and also give you a little hint about an episode of Paranormal Witness you can watch. So without further ado, let's hear some Ohio encounters.
This encounter comes from weekinweird.com. I don't care if you believe me or not, was a serious, straightforward introduction I was given to a possible Wolfman sighting in the autumn of 2013. It was at this point that my longtime friend Andrew told me of not just one encounter, but 2 separate encounters with more than one strange bipedal creature out hunting game near Norton, Ohio. Andrew normally works night shifts, which means traveling quiet, darkened roads is an everyday occurrence for him. One cold autumn night in particular, while traveling down Johnson Road, bordering Silver Creek Metro Park, what he saw was anything but routine. Approximately 50 yards from the intersection with Medina Line Road, he stopped his car when 2 deer raced across the road heading south. But what caught his attention was what they were running from. I would place them somewhere between 6'6" and 7 foot tall. They chased the 2 deer, which were both smaller by the way, out across the street and into the woods. They ran in formation, one in the front, 2 behind, kinda next to each other. They were roughly 30-40 yards behind the deer. They were bipedal, very muscular and fast. Lightning fast. It all happened in just a few seconds. I couldn't describe any features, unfortunately. I'm assuming it was either a new moon or cloudy because it was very dark, but they were definitely a dark color, maybe a chocolate brown or black color. I pressed him for any more detail. After all, there have been Bigfoot sightings in Ohio. They say that Bigfoot has long arms that swing when it runs, and it runs like a human. Whatever these were, they weren't Bigfoot. I can't describe how they moved, but they didn't move like a person. Less than a month later, Andrew was heading home on Johnson Road. As he passed a moonlit cornfield, something ran in front of his car. The fields had full-grown corn stalks, but I don't know exact heights. Only that the corn stalks were taller than me by a head and that I'm 6 foot tall. This time, my sighting of 2 creatures was a quick flash because there was no open land to it. They basically leaped the road as they broke the corn and landed about 10-15 feet into the field on the other side and kept running. This time, the pair that I saw in the moonlight, the first was black, and the second was black with white or silver on its chest and back. Since the first 3 I saw were all a solid color, that means there must be at least 4 different creatures. This one is a private report I got. The witness has had 2 previous encounters and recognizes the smell of this thing. At around 3 a.m., we were winding down a country road near a park and river when I caught the smell. I growled out, "It's coming!" and stomped down on the pedal. She closed the windows and drew her handgun from her purse. As we come around a tight bend, it comes out of the tree line and swings its right clawed hand at the vehicle. But I swerved and took off like a bat out of hell. In the mirror, though, I noticed it just stood there until we were out of sight. It's also worth noting that at this time it wasn't nearly as red and filthy, but had distinct gray and black fur that resembled your average gray wolf throughout its red fur, giving it more of a brown color at a distance, and was noticeably heavier. My wife pointed out once we made it to a city that it seemed more like it was flagging us down than attacking, like a lost person that just made it out of the woods and saw the first car drive by. While I didn't disagree with her Her safety is paramount to me, and I refuse to risk her life to get a better look. This encounter comes from the Unexplained Mysteries Forum. I live in southern Ohio, about 40 miles from Cincinnati, and I live on a country road that might be described as well populated. Well, anyway, I was just heading back to the house from feeding our pet rabbits in our hutch, and I happened to see a dark figure out of the corner of my eye. I turned my head and saw a bipedal dog-like animal in the field across the street from us. It just broke cover from a clump of trees in the middle of the field and was running for the forest tree line. It was flying, man. I don't mean leaving the ground, defying gravity. I just mean running really, really fast. I'd say that it had brown, shaggy hair that was clumping and shedding for summer. It was about March. Not traditionally gray like stereotype werewolves or whatever the heck they are. I wasn't scared, only curious, and also because my mind hadn't yet caught up with what I was seeing. I also saw that it sometimes went down to all fours to make a really big leap of speed, then it would go bipedal again. When on all fours, it seemed to run like a gorilla, knuckles down and propelling itself on its front legs. It also kind of ran to the side, not straight forward, like if it was facing you while running, it would kind of be going to your left or right. When it got to the wood line, I lost sight of it. I just stood there thinking, what the bloody hell was that? A coyote on acid? Then my brain processed this image of a 6 to 7 foot tall, hunched over, gorilla running, brown, shaggy furred bipedal canine, running at about 60 miles per hour, and yelled, "Get inside! Haven't you ever seen The Howling? American Werewolf in London? Run!" So I did. Even though it obviously didn't even notice me, my fight or flight instincts were working. So I ran inside, double-locked the door, and told my parents.
This encounter comes from paranormal@about.com. I used to spend most days hanging out with my next-door neighbor and good friend Billy. We were adventurous and enjoyed scaring each other. We were also a bit mischievous and liked to break rules. There wasn't much to do here in this small neighborhood in Cincinnati, Ohio. There was a construction company not far at all from where we lived. All we had to do was walk through some woods and climb or crawl under a huge barbed wire fence, and we were in the place. There were a few buildings there, like a garage, an office building, a warehouse, and several other small buildings. The place was very off limits, and we would have gotten into a ton of trouble if we'd been caught sneaking in. But that's exactly what we used to do in the winter. We'd sneak in and just mess around, climb on the bulldozers, spy on the guys working late in the garage, hide in the maze of concrete parts, stuff like that. I don't really know why we did it. I think we just liked the rush and adrenaline from being someplace we weren't supposed to be. One winter night, about a week and a half before Christmas, Billy and I sneaked out of our houses around midnight to sneak into the place. It was so cold, but we went anyway. We were in there for about half an hour just screwing around when we started hearing men talking. The voices of men talking came from all around the place. There must have been a lot of guys working late that night. There had been guys there when we sneaked in before, so we didn't really care. After another hour, we heard something that still raises the hair on the back of my neck to think of. Off in the distance, coming from somewhere in the woods, we heard a loud, eerie, howl-like groan. It went on for about 8 seconds. Everything fell silent for a second, and my eyes just turned huge from fright. I don't think I've ever been that shocked before. That's when we heard one of the men say loudly, "Hear that? That must have been the thing Tony was talking about the other night." and the men laughed. Billy and I just stood there. The men didn't seem to be afraid at all. Unfortunately for us, the only way for us to get back home was through the woods, and after hearing that, we were absolutely terrified. Just a few minutes later, we heard a raspy growl from outside the fence near us. Billy and I grabbed one another. I remember Billy's exact words. "Adam, listen to me, man. I'm scared out of my mind right now, so I might not be making the best decisions right now, but I say we get out of here and go home." So we sneaked over to the gate that we crawled in under and gave ourselves a moment to prepare for the mad dash we were about to make through the woods. We looked back one last time. I wish we hadn't. Standing in the middle of the lot behind us was what looked like a cross between a human and a kangaroo. It was standing under a light, so we got a pretty good look at it. It looked like it was about 5 feet tall from where it was standing. It had a human-like head, but seemed to have a small snout. The legs were bent like a kangaroo's, and its arms hung down low by its knees. It was watching something over to its left. Oddly enough, the thing bobbed its head every few seconds as it stared at whatever it was looking at, sort of like from the top of its head down to the middle of its back. The thing didn't seem to have any fur. Honestly, it was the most horrifying thing. I didn't want to meet that thing face to face. We went under the gate and we ran. After we were out, I noticed that we had caught the creature's attention. We froze, unable to move. Its eyes had a shine to them like a cat's eyes. We just stood there. Billy grabbed my coat sleeve to get my attention. That must have really caught the thing's interest. It started to move toward us. The thing was moving in a jogging sort of motion, not very fast, but fast enough to catch up to us pretty quick. I couldn't help it. I screamed. Billy did the same. I've never seen him so scared. I don't think I've ever been that scared. We bolted through the woods. I remember hearing the creature howl back behind us. I could tell we were outrunning it. I still wonder what the workers back at the place thought, or if they saw the creature after we ran. I guess it couldn't get past the gate because I don't think it ran after us in the woods. We ran for about 25 minutes before we got back to the neighborhood. We ran into my house and just sat there, catching our breath. We just talked about it all night. We just discussed what we saw and what it could have been. Billy ended up staying the night at my house. We didn't sleep that night. A few years have passed. I'm now 16. Even years later, I dare not get close to that fence, which still stands. I've been hunting in those woods since then, and every single time I have feared meeting the thing again. What it is, I might never know, and I'm afraid to find out. Then there is a story, one that makes you wonder whether dogmen really are dogmen, this cryptid, this unexplained creature, or whether they are, in fact, what they have been for thousands of years, whether they are werewolves. This story was made into an episode of Paranormal Witness. It's from London, Ohio, and it occurred between 1981 and 82. Keith and Diane Williams moved into a new home with their 4-year-old daughter Raven. The new home was in a wooded area of town, and while Keith worked and attended night school, Diane spent nights at home alone with the little girl. One night, Diane heard noises outside the house, but when she looked out she didn't see anything, so she dismissed the incident. Then, as she was washing the dishes, she saw a pair of eyes in the darkness outside the kitchen window. She told herself that it must have been a stray dog, but when she completed her task and moved to another room of the house, she saw the eyes again, as if the owner of those eyes had followed her, and she realized that it couldn't have been a dog because the eyes had been at her eye level. Sufficiently spooked, she quickly closed the drapes as her husband arrived home. After she told her husband what happened, Keith investigated the yard but found no signs of anything out of the ordinary, and he attributed the strange tale to Diane's nerves. Several months later, Keith finally had his first encounter when he woke early one morning and decided to run to the store to buy donuts for breakfast. When he got into the car and looked into the rearview mirror, there were the eyes staring back at him. Keith discovered that something had jumped off the back of his house and landed 20 feet out in the middle of his yard. Together with a friend, he tracked the footprints to another cabin owned by a man named George. To learn the rest, you're going to have to watch the Paranormal Witness episode, which I'm going to link to in the description. And again, links have a tendency to go missing, so I can only say that the link works today, and if it doesn't by the time you watch this, you're gonna have to Google Paranormal Witness The Cabin. Well, I hope you watched that episode of Paranormal Witness. It's an interesting one. But this is it for today, so take care, and remember to look under your bed before you go to sleep, and pull the curtains shut as soon as darkness falls. I'll see you next time.